steadily it rises.
Hey, it's ODB, the Lincoln Addict, back with another listing review. This one I'm super excited about. Stick with me to the end and I'll tell you what I believe this car should sell for. Without further delay, let's jump right in. Okay, I got super excited about this one about 5 days ago. I received an email that this car had been listed, and I immediately knew this car based upon prior research and various posts that I've done on Lincoln Addict social media. 21-year owned, ex Peter Lawford 1965 Lincoln Continental Convertible in a beautiful color, depending on your choice, of course, often referred to as dusty rose. So let's jump into this review. Now, there's 2 days left at the time of this recording, so this is going to be one that if you're looking for a convertible, this car might be for you. 65 convertibles claim to be the car that was ordered new by Peter Lawford. The connection to Ford is believed to have stemmed from Lawford's marital link to the Kennedy family and therefore Robert McNamara. Many will remember that Robert McNamara was the Secretary of Defense, I think from 61 to the late 60s, like 68, under JFK and then LBJ. He also, prior to that, worked for Lincoln Mercury or under the Ford umbrella, and I believe he was the one that was looking to kill off the Lincoln brand after the dismal 58, 59, and 60s. He's also, I think, technically, even though he was looking to kill it off, they made the decision to keep it, come out with a 61. So he was involved in a lot of those talks. I'll just leave it kind of at that, I think is the better way to look at it. But that was the connection that Peter Lawford had at that time. Of course, it still has the factory 430, so we'll talk about that. There is a California title. The car is believed to have been Lawford's when new by the original dealership. The metallic rose, as they call it here, often referred to, you'll see in social media posts as dusty rose. Paintwork exhibits signs of aging and cracks, so you will see that in the images. John Cashman worked on this car. His signatures date back to December 2018 and March 2025. There is a remote. Of course, it's a convertible, so it's a soft top, and he did a few other things, including the power seat transmission. White wall tires, the thinner white wall tire on the 15-inch wheels, of course, are factory. Those date back to 2018. So that's good. It kind of gives you an indication. Oftentimes, if you're going to buy a car like this, you may end up getting new tires. The seating has been upholstered in black upholstery along with color-coordinated dashboard. So at first glance, you almost want to go, wow, these do look factory correct. But, we can look at the bench part where you actually sit on it. And, we can tell that it was redone at some point, in my opinion. The backs look a little bit more original, the tops do at least, than the bottom part. But this, I think, would be suitable for most people. And then down the road, you can always redo it if that's something you want to do. The air condition does not blow cold. That's not atypical in these cars. The odometer says 5,500 miles, but we all know it's more than, you could almost put money on it that it's over 100,000. So it's, more than likely 100,000, 105,500. 2,000 miles were under the current ownership. And that is key because this car was owned by this individual for about 21 years. We could see here it says built for Peter Lawford 1965. Now, these can be replicated. What our assumption is, and I've seen different ones, like the one I have for my 64 is a little bit different than what I've seen on other folks' cars. But, I mean, by all accounts, our understanding is this definitely was his car. And I followed this car for a while just because I love mid-century modern. And I believe the gentleman that might own it owns a very famous house in Palm Springs, but a great car, in my opinion, top down, color-wise, for that kind of mid-century modern vibe out in California. We're going to get to a few of the details in terms of the extras on this car in terms of optional equipment, but we can see here it does have the cruise control, also known as speed control. It has the single reservoir pot, so we'll kind of get into some of this. And we can see that it has the 3-port fuel pump, which is good. They do try to provide some photos from underneath the car. Like, you would look at this and kind of go, hey, it's a little gritty, it's a little grimy. That's the way these cars typically are. So this doesn't reveal a lot, but I always tell people, like, look at this front cross member. Depending on where these cars have been over the course of time, with the batteries that potentially leak and things like that, it often kind of falls down and trickles down, if you will, to the battery region, but sometimes also impacting this big front cross member. We could see here Bring a Trailer does a great job. The car, and this is where I never had this detail. Oftentimes we were told that it was repainted out of the gate, and I would think that, hey, if you had a connection like McNamara, maybe it could have been ordered with a special color. But what we could see here is the color C is the medium ivy gold metallic paint, so that does bring credence to the fact that this car was produced in one particular color, and then of course at some point, maybe right away, maybe before he took ownership of it, or it's hard to tell, like with a little bit of respray here and there, was it done a few years later? Those things are just going to be, tough to determine unless we had, photo evidence back then. And it's hard to find photos from that era. We see that it had the black interior. It was a March 31st build date. So that would have been March 31st of 1965. The Chicago sales district, so it has a DSO 41. One thing that I noticed that I'll talk about later is this air cleaner is from a California car. So at some point, maybe somebody changed it because it has this extra tube that I've often talked about right here. That indicates to us it has the extra emissions for California. Not sure going back how far the smog rules, maybe at some point somebody was like, hey, it's going to be out in California. So like we did a few things to it, maybe took it to a dealership and said, oh yeah, let's put this on here because now it's out in California. But regardless, it was the DSO 41, but could it have been ordered there knowing it was going to be in California? We just don't know. But there's a couple things called out. There are some Peter Lawford memorabilia, including an autograph that comes with it. I know not everybody likes this individual. I'm not here to judge Peter Lawford. I was born in the late 70s, so more of an 80s, 90s kid, if you will. So I wasn't ever enamored with kind of the Rat Pack and some of those different things. You can look him up if that's something that you want to do. There are some videos, walk around, interior, engine, and startup, which is fantastic. Videos are really, really key. The photo gallery is what we really want to get to. The first thing I will tell you is this is a 65, which I've mentioned. A very sought after year. It's one of those cars that people really love 65. Now, the Lincoln fans or people that own like a 63 or a different year, they're usually partial to a particular year. I'll have people say, dude, I absolutely love 65. And I have people that say, I don't like 65, I like 63. It's all kind of preference. 64, 65s are very similar. As I mentioned, we can tell that this is a 65 because the front grille is distinctive. It's 1 year only. Also, you've got the front turn signals in that front fender. Looks really, really good. The cages, if you will, around the front turn signals match the back. So in 65 only, we end up getting the cages around the taillights. That's one of the key differences if you're looking from the back. We can see that it has that very distinctive color, dusty rose. It's often referred to, I'm going to flip over to my Instagram. I've shared this photo, which this photo here is Brent Harris. Now, I'm not sure if he's the owner of the car, but it has been photoed before sitting outside of this property. So either friends with them or owns this home. And there's another person that does a lot of LA history. I've shared her photos in the past, but this post was originally in a Facebook group called Pink Cars, I believe it was. And they kind of go on to talk about Peter Lawford, the connection. The actor was rumored to have arranged a tryst between Marilyn Monroe and JFK at that time, which was well publicized. There was a falling out. When Elizabeth Taylor checked into the Betty Ford Clinic, it kind of talks about that. It goes on to say it was her friend Lawford who tipped a major supermarket tabloid to her whereabouts. So he was kind of always involved in some scandals towards, I think, later on in his career. This is often referred to as a Dusty Rose 65 Lincoln Continental. And it... I was gonna see. Oh yeah, it's just in Palm Springs. I forget the name of this house, the Kaufman Desert House. So it's been photographed here. Again, beautiful color. It looks just perfect in that setting, in my opinion. But as we go through here, something to keep in mind is I think the color of this is going to appeal to some. The fact that it's rare that I've never seen another one in this color. Obviously it's been repainted from what we can tell and what the data tells us. The thing I would say is that this color again is going to appeal to some, and then others are going to say, hey, I want to get it, I'm going to paint it black. I would hope that somebody wouldn't do that, because it is kind of basically a one-off car as far as we know. But you could potentially paint your car this color if that's something that you want to do. All of these, 10, 15, 20 footers, if you will, photos, do a good job of presenting the overall car. We can see that it has the flat glass, which is synonymous with, of course, 64, 65 only. In that particular era, we can see that it looks good with the top up or with the top down. In these photos, the top is not totally latched. There are some times where you got to put your kind of palm of your hand and push down a little bit on this as those um, the clamps or hooks, if you will, are hooking in there. But not sure if that just was they didn't let it finish cycling, or if they just did that really quick, knowing they were going to put the top right back down potentially. The car looks good again, 20 footer. What we can see, but I think overall you're going to see some things, and this is just like on my 64. I don't mind a car like this. I'd rather an untouched car that has been driven and been enjoyed. And then down the road, if you want to spend the money and invest and get a full blown paint job. And you look down here in this dog leg area, same exact thing on my 64. It has a little bit of this. And that is going to happen. They give a lot of detailed photos in here. The paint is not perfect, but I often tell people, if these cars are 60 years old, how often are you going to find one with perfect paint? If one has been driven and been enjoyed and it's been out, not sitting in a garage for 50 years, it's going to have some battle wounds, I guess you could kind of say, is the best way for me to explain it. Again, I'm a big fan of this color. It reminds me of the earlier 60s color, which is often referred to as rose. You could see, again, paint is not perfect. Very similar. My 64 is in a lot worse condition, but I just like the authenticity of it. I know some people would say, hey, luxury car, Jason, ODB, I'm going to get this car, I'm going to totally have it repainted. Hey, more power to you. I'd love to see it stay the same color. We can see the seal here as well. These seals tend to get old and whatnot. I always tell people, go to Steel Rubber, STEELE rubber.com. You can buy all of these pieces. They are the best in the business. We can see a little bit of stuff here. It's hard to tell if that's like Bondo or a little bit of body filler. More than likely, it's had a little bit of work over the course of time, but it is hard to tell. This is what we refer to as the package tray. So when the top is up, like it is here, that's where the top, you can see the black part, that's where it protrudes out, and that's where it comes out to go up to the front header panel at the windshield. When the top is down, basically that area where the convertible is coming out the top, that is filled with the flapper, if you will, is what we often refer to it as. And that is up underneath the deck lid. So yeah, a couple things there that I wanted to share. Okay. So we've got some detailed photos. You can see, again, even on the rear convertible glass here, a lot of times this stuff is not perfect. You can see a little bit of pitting and things like that on some of the pieces that are pot metal. And again, they do a good job of showing all that. I've seen tops in far worse condition. More than likely, whoever buys this is going to have the top down most of the time. But, for the top to look in this condition, I'm assuming it's been changed at some point. Maybe not if it was always down. But, the clear back window, you can see out of it if you need to move it, or if it's raining, you could put obviously the top up. One of the things that stuck out to me on the interior is you've got this tear in the speaker grill area. You can get these pieces here from some of the usual suspects on parted out cars. So it's not like the hardest part in the world to find. At first, with all of the options on it, I assumed that it had the Ultronic Eye. And some of you guys that have the Ultronic Eye might be able to chime in. I want to say that it probably was bolted here. I know it goes in this region, being that this is almost like a perfect square. So if that's the case, you would just get another Ultronic Eye, which is the automatic headlight dimmer. Even if it didn't work and you could have it installed there, it would fill that gap if in fact that's exactly where it's installed. I have a 64 and a 65, which are pretty much identical dashes, although neither of my cars have the Ultronic Eye. I always like to look at the rearview mirror. Well, granted, John Cashman does usually stock these on his truck, so this could be a new rearview mirror. So that's always in play, but I kind of like to see if there's any uh, build up on it. Sometimes you'll see a little bit of surface rust. I know my 64 kind of had a little bit on that. You can often clean it up with some steel wool and things like that, but this one looks really, really good. When the top is up, this is an important photo to look at. Like, you're going to look at these kind of regions in here, and if the auto drops are not working, as I often talk about, you're going to have this rear window catch in this corner, and you're going to potentially have, like, when the door is slammed, this glass will sometimes move a little bit, and you can see it's not perfect up in here. But the good thing is you can go and you can buy all of these seals. Like, if you got this car at a decent price and you said, hey, I'm going to leave it this color, I'm going to go and I want to restore it and I want to make it like really nice. You would go and probably buy all new seals through steel rubber. Potentially, or any that have to be changed. We can see John Cashman, more than likely, was the individual that installed this bar that isn't, it's Paramount in 64, 65, and that helps keep that whole system taut back there with really no play, I think is a good word. And that helps ensure that these cast pieces don't ever get um, cracked, because with the immense pressure of putting this top up and down 60 plus years, there have been examples of these cast pieces breaking. So having this piece in here really is extra insurance. We can see it has the factory wheel covers. I think the wide white is just a tad thicker than what a purist might want on the car, but certainly to me, it does not matter. And with these tires now being 8 years old, like, at some point, someone's probably just gonna, put some new tires on it. We can see the interior is not perfect. You can get through Wallace in Florida. You can get new carpets. He makes the heel pad as well. This is original stuff. We can see that it has the kick panel piece here with the carpet on it. We can see the throttle pedal is well worn. That really reinforces this is not a 5,000-mile car. Um, which I don't think they're presenting it as that. Don't get me wrong. I'm just like calling this stuff out. You can see the car's been driven and there's nothing wrong with that. To me shows, hey, it's been enjoyed, and this thing was, 100,000 miles isn't a lot of miles for one of these cars. It does have a little hole here. Something over the course of time must have been drilled in there. Not sure what that is. We can see it also has speed control. We'll look at some more of the features. Typical scuffing on the sill plate area here, and they're just showing all the details. We could see, though, from this paint job, it wasn't, I guess by today's standards, it could have been a quick respray, but everything was sprayed in there. It wasn't one of those paint jobs where they just went really quick and didn't, spray the door jams and things like that. Being that he was a prominent figure, like a celebrity, I think is a better term, they probably just wanted to make sure that it was dialed in the best that they could. And we can see, in these photos, it's nice to kind of look inside the doors and kind of see how clean it is in there, see if we see anything. I usually like to see an under the door photo, but I don't think that there's one that I recall seeing. So we'll see here in a few minutes. Okay. So being that there was the McNamara connection, and being that this was a celebrity, we could see that this car has most of the options. So it has the Ultronic eye, if I can get back here. Well, I believe it maybe had the Ultronic eye. We can see that it has air condition. It has the speed control, which I mentioned, which is on the right of the steering wheel, and that would be basically cruise control. It has the AM FM radio, which would have been big, and it does not have the individual adjustable contour seats, which are also known as the bucket seats. I think those are the main ones. We can see it's missing the little teeny ring around where the key goes. And again, all it says is ignition, but it's often missing kind of a unicorn aisle item. I also failed to mention that it does have the tilt column. I'd be interested to see if that works. There's a button at the end of the shift lever. And with the vacuum, there's like a little, when you push it, you can move it to the high spot or the low spot. I always keep mine on my 65 on number 3. The dash looks pretty clean, to be totally honest. Whether this has been polished or this is just kind of all original, it looks really good. I've seen far worse. And so far, I'm liking everything that I see on this car, kind of the originality of it, especially being that it was owned by a celebrity. We can see a little bit of a tear. I think you can find these from Lincoln Land, the inner of the glove box. Showing here, what you always want to look at is just kind of the pitting on these different pieces, and it doesn't look too bad. We do see a few screws here. It's kind of hard to say what that stuff goes to. Over the course of time, people taking door panels and off and things like that. The stuff tends to get misplaced. We can see that the front seat belts are correct. The rear are not. from a safety perspective, if you had kids in the back or something to that effect and you just wanted to be safe, you could have a seat belt. You can, although the rear seat belts are getting a little bit more expensive, you can, always upgrade those. This has more of a GM style buckle on it, if that makes sense. In the trunk is kind of what you would expect. It's got the black carpet. We can see some of John Cashman's handiwork over here with the new pump and solenoids. That stuff is worth its weight in gold because it's getting more expensive to do all that, including just the parts. So to know that the top is working and that Cashman worked on it twice is really a big win. Again, you can see this piece right here. This is 60 or California only, and we know the destination sales on this one was for Chicago. So someone could have just put this air cleaner and this oil cap deal on here, and with that tube, that's then kind of fits in with the California vibe. It does, again, have the 3-port over here fuel pump, which is key. It's got the AC compressor. Of course, it doesn't blow cold, which is fine. And then it also has the single pot reservoir, which I mentioned. They show some detailed photos here, which are key, kind of showing the car hasn't really ever been too far blown apart. Which is good. It does look like it'd be interesting to know if the steering, so these bolts have been changed. More than likely, at some point, someone's changed those rubber steering mounts to the steel ones if these 3 bolts are the grade 8 bolts that it looks like that they are. That's just something that most of us end up doing at some point. Looks like newer exhaust, so that's a good thing. The car is not perfect underneath, but from what we could see, it doesn't look bad. Maybe if they could get a few more photos on a lift or something to that effect. The replacement ID, this has something to do with California, so I can't explain that. It does have the original, which we looked at, and we know it's the 33,411 built for that model year. So it wasn't like an early production for 65. That's where we get the March of 65 build date, if that makes sense. There's John Cashman's signature and a few other photos. This is really key. This shows some of the maintenance over the past 20 years or so. Some of the things that were done. I mean, look right here, $21,000. And this was all kinds of stuff. Cashman tune-up, all kinds of different things. So a little bit longer. This car to me is kind of a part of that old school Hollywood time period. Again, not aligning with, I don't know much about Peter Lawford other than he owned this Lincoln. I know his name is synonymous with a few scandals and things like that, but other than that, don't know much about him. I know he was friends with the Rat Pack folks, or was part of it. But this car to me is one that it has enough to potentially drive the price to a pretty solid number. Now, I say this because if you type in, like I said, I'm bringing a trailer, 1964 Lincoln Continental, white 64 with red interior sold for $85,000 recently. And it was a nice car. A 65 blue with white interior sold for $52,000. Right? So if you're like, okay, 65 at about $50K, 64 at 85, to me, this car should easily eclipse 60,000. The only thing that would potentially hold it back is somebody going, I want a 65, but I'd rather go for a color that I really want. To me, if you can get a car and you start to enjoy it, right? It runs, it drives, the windows go up and down, the top goes down, the fluids, you check your fluids and you get out and you enjoy it, right? You get the wife, the kids, to get others, and you cruise around and you enjoy it. And then over the course of time, you build a plan on what do you want to do? Do you want to restore it back? Do you want to clean up the undercarriage? Do you want to, assess what you got, look at those receipts, what work has been done, and then kind of go from there. But certainly to me, very cool that it's pretty much a 101, although it didn't come off the assembly line with that color. And I think it goes great in Palm Springs. I hope that this car goes to a good home, and I hope that the seller gets as much as he or she can for it, because I do think it's a very cool car. And certainly it reminds me a lot of my 64, although my 64 is kind of more patina. It's got a lot of character to it.
Welcome to LA where the players play, and we ride on them things like every day.